national mission. Now, there has been a court order, surrounding the particular deployment, with Parliament and Cabinet having approved the mission to deploy the officers, but the envisaged deployment started following a court ruling that opposed it on judicial grounds and the resignation in April of Haiti's acting Prime Minister Ariel Henry, which put the deployment on hold. Now, the first batch is expected to arrive in May 23rd or 24th, in time to coincide with a state visit by President William Ruto. Now, the deployment comes 7 months after that particular Security Council gave it a go-ahead. So 200 officers will land in Haiti either on the 23rd or 24th of May. And, the total figure is set to be at about 1,000 police officers. Also, top of the page on the Standard, do not belittle the Deputy President, Mount Kenya leaders tell Ruto. Now, the leaders say enough is enough on the humiliation that Rigathi Gachagua has suffered in government and warn of their many options. Now, the explosive Limuru 3 meeting, which I've said will be at the center of our discussion in just a few minutes, is just about who's the kingpin of the Mount Kenya region. What role should the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, be playing in government? And what is he playing now that is not satisfactory to the Mount Kenya leaders? As well as some of their grievances that they've put on the table. They do want the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. However, some other leaders say that particular, theory is disadvantageous to other regions. So we'll be taking a look at that, which has also made headlines to the Standard newspaper. Now to the Star, Ruto key mission in historic USA trip. President Ruto key mission in historic USA trip. Make strong case for Kenya as an investment destination. As well, it's a golden opportunity because the tour is poised to be a turning point for Kenya. 5-day tour of the United States will meet President Joe Biden and the Vice President Kamala Harris, who's the first female Vice President of the United States. Now, lethargy hampers the implementation of the Ruto-Raila talks report, as well the NADCO report, National Dialogue Committee report. Azimio say they want that report implemented as soon as possible. However, the other side says, there's still some things that need to be sorted out because they set to hamper the NADCO report. So what is the NADCO bill before the bicameral parliament? We've got the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill of 2023 that seeks to anchor various positions into law. The Elections Offences Amendment Bill. We've got also the Political Parties Amendment Bill of 2024, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Bill of 2023, the Statutory Instruments of 2023, as well as the National Government Coordination Bill of 2023. So those are just among the bills that are before Parliament that seek to bring into play the National Dialogue Committee report. Also, the start top of the page, you should not stab a brother in the back, says Gachagua. The Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's Mount Kenya backers now want President William Ruto to rein in his allies from the region, trying to create a wedge between the two. They say there's a plot to isolate the DP from his boss. And then finally, the Daily Nation, top of the page, Ruto starts US visit. Ruto starts U.S. visits. At the center is trade deals, the Haiti mission, as well as health focus. Now, President William Ruto has started his state visit to the United States, a trip that seeks to further strengthen diplomatic and trade ties between the two nations. In his meetings with U.S. President Joe Biden, American politicians, and business leaders, the head of state is also expected to make a strong case for Nairobi as Africa's top and most strategic investment destination. Will he succeed? Well, we'll see the fruits of that particular visit. Also, Gachagua fights back. The Deputy President allies have alleged a plot within the ruling Kenya Kwanza alliance to undermine the DP's authority, vowing to defend him. Now, elected representatives in the national and county assemblies from various parts of Mount Kenya region said yesterday they will not allow the DP to be treated as President William Ruto was treated when he was the Deputy President under Uhuru Kenyatta. They had accompanied Gachagua, who resurfaced after several days of absence from public limelight, to a church fundraiser in Nyeri County. So that conversation, we'll be having it in just a bit. However, that is the newspaper review. All right, so allow us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, we'll be getting into a conversation around state of the nation, including the Limuru 3 meeting aftermath, as well as, this battle for the mountain and the mountain region kingpin. And we'll be having that conversation with Muito Mureithi, who's a political commentator, as well as George Ngaira, who's a political analyst. So stay with us, keep your feedback coming in through SMS feedback lines, and we'll be glad to sample your questions, thoughts, comments perhaps that you have concerning this. So stay with us. Morning Live returns in just a bit. 59. You can also watch us on Facebook and on YouTube. Give us your feedback, questions, thoughts, comments, perhaps concerning this Limuru 3 meeting. Was it an important meeting for that matter that would have, changed the political landscape within Mount Kenya region? Was it a waste of time? Your thoughts will be highly appreciated. And so our guests are in studio this morning. Let me introduce them very quickly. On my immediate right, I'm joined by Muito Mureithi, who's a political commentator. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Good morning, and thank you.
You're welcome. And next to him is George Ngaira, a political analyst. Thank you so much, Ngaira, for coming in again.
Thank you for having me, Cynthia.
All right, so before we get into the Limuru 3 meeting, which is part of our conversation this morning, perhaps just a brief thought over the U.S. state visit by President William Ruto, a 5-day state visit that also comes at the time when Kenya is set to deploy about 200 officers. Well, the total tally should be at 1,000 shillings, but they're doing it in phases. And so 200 police officers will be stepping foot into Haiti first before others can proceed. So briefly about the two, issues that are happening this morning, Muito.
Yeah, well, we have His Excellency the President doing his visit in a 5-day tour in the United States of America. And it has a lot that is attached to it. Every side is pulling towards its interests. That is Kenya and also the United States. But before I even get to the details of, what really Kenyans would expect from that tour, I think briefly I can comment on the exchange program that we have. Not really exchange program, but the deployment of 200 soldiers in the Haiti. Who were expected to add to 1,000 people, to 1,000 police officers. At the same time, remember this is a UN mission. It's not really a Kenyan mission because it was sanctioned by the United Nations. And so even the expenses are catered for by the United Nations. What has never come out clear, and our media has never informed us, and of course they can access this information, is how many other countries are sending police officers to the Haiti. Because it's not only Kenyan. If it's a UN thing, then it's not only Kenyan. It's just the way we have the military sent to other countries. But this has not been spoken by the Kenyan media, so we don't have this information so clear. What we know is that Kenya is sending 1,000. And if it's a country that is that's actually troubled with gangsterism, then I think 1,000 is not enough. So definitely the United Nations must have outsourced from others. And I do believe that equipment also, Kenya police officers, especially from the GSU and such forces, are highly trained to use even sophisticated weapons. And definitely they're not going there with the G3 rifles for this kind of a mission, much as they would like to go and talk and convince them into settling as a nation. I think at the same time where they will face challenge, definitely they'll be well equipped for this. So I'm not belittling the Kenyan contingent that is to be sent to that side. I do believe that they are up to the task, but it's only because that it has never happened before, and Kenyans have a low opinion on who we call the police officers. Perhaps because of how sometimes they carry themselves, they carry out their duties, like what we were seeing on TV today, over last night. And I do believe that it's a few that may misbehave, but I do believe that they are capable and they're well trained, because some of them have been getting training from the best of the best, Israel and the like, the US. So what I'm trying to say here is that the Haiti mission, I think we'll wait and see, but we're hoping that is not a mission that's gonna take away our kids, our young men lives, because we need to be well prepared and planned. Let's not imagine that it's only 200 soldiers that are going to be there. For the US trip, His Excellency the President William Ruto has been championing Pan-Africanism. And one way to tame somebody who is championing something a noble idea like that, the best thing to do is to treat him nicely and try as much as you can, try and tame him, because I know he had gained much influence in Africa. And so the Americans was not used to the Africa that demands for negotiations of whatever sort. And the awakening of the African leadership and nations through the Pan-Africanism agitation, I do believe that the US gets worried, because it's unlike China, which is used to sitting round table, negotiate, whether it's business, bid for it and get it. And these are the kind of things that we have been having since 2000. And I do believe that the US is not going to come, chest forward to try and push the agenda into the Kenyan, into Africans and Kenyans through their president. And I do believe that the president is also awake and aware of the interest of the United States of America, because they too would like to have their footing in the Kenyan soil, so that they can be able to penetrate the larger market of East Africa region, COMESA and Africa region. Right. So I do believe that there's a lot that will go with it.
Yeah. Ngaira, the Haiti deployment comes at a time when the courts declared it unconstitutional and unlawful on grounds that nowhere in the constitution is it listed that police officers can be deployed beyond Kenya's region to maintain peace in another nation. But here we are, 200 contingent of officers are set to depart the country. Your thoughts on that briefly?
First of all, Kenya, like any other state in the world, is not an island. And therefore, there's nothing wrong with Kenya engaging the rest of the world, be it the US or any of the other almost 200 countries that exist in this God's earth. And so President William Ruto, who is now actually in the US, I think was to travel yesterday night. So he should be either on air or heading towards Atlanta by now. And so he, just like any other president, it's understandable when he's able to engage in such trips that are alternately expected, that are for the benefit of the people of Kenya. Yeah. And as far as our interests are concerned, Kenya is still a developing nation, and there is no doubt that it needs both economic, social and political partners to be able to ensure that that agenda of the country is able to be achieved. And we hope, on paper, we hope that is the case, so that the president then is able to come up with something tangible that Kenyans can benefit. It's not the first time that the president is going to the US. He's been there multiple times, but I think this time around it's being considered to be a state visit, which makes it slightly more formal than many of the other engagements, because I guess with the kind of engagements that he has, particularly in Washington, because after Atlanta then he goes to Washington, and engaging some of the Congress members and the mainstream government, it exposes him to the local, to the political players and the lobbyists that exist in Washington, D.C. And as far as Kenya's interests are concerned, which from a political angle is very commendable, and is something that we hope it comes out with something tangible for the benefit of the Kenyan people. And as far as Haiti is concerned, this is where, for me, I have massive reservations about that trip. And because there's nothing in there for Kenyans apart from just the glory that the president will get out of it. because Nairobi alone, as we speak, I've been previously engaged in some of the what you call the public participation, the county, what you call the county security teams that, you know, the police department and the local county, usually they have some committees that they engage in, the local leaders, whenever they want to handle security matters within counties. And I'm telling you, for the first time I attended one, and I was able to get a structure of Nairobi and its 85 wards and what they call the hotspots, the areas that is expected even today, since there will be people committing crimes. You know, but some years back I used to stay around here, and I was once robbed at a junction here at gunpoint with my cousin who had just arrived from our country, and because he was new in the city, so I waited to pick me up. We never made it home. We landed into some criminals. And since that day, I took note of Nairobi and some of its dangerous quarters. And if you were to begin counting, my sister Cynthia, you know, from town and railways and Bunyala Road and the Cabanas Junction and the Down Home Junction here, Kariobangi, we have almost 60 hotspots that people commit crimes on a daily basis. And the reason was that even the local police service is overwhelmed in terms of the kind of structure they need to be able to handle. If me, who's not a security expert, can project where crime can be, Cynthia, then you expect those who have actually been trained to be able to preempt crime to do that. And the challenge that even Nairobi County alone has had, never to talk of the other parts of the country, the terrain in the Kerio Valley, which is even more tragic, is that then it means Kenya can, by itself, is in need of security support. We should actually be receiving American Marines who are more trained and more experienced to come in and help us secure our country. And we are in need of equipment and things like that. So I sincerely do think that it's unfortunate that Haiti and many other countries might be facing such security challenges. It's not something that we wish for any state, because I've always done for many years that I advocate for peace, because in any country where there is no peace, then nothing else can work. You know, we saw live TV some time back in Iraq, when you had that terrorist gang take over the state, and you had all these guys trying to jump on a plane to leave the country, and it was chaos. And when it seems in a picture like that one, even if you take their $1 billion of aid, how will you be able to execute that in a place where it's war torn? So we hope Haiti will be able to address its own issues. I hoped that those who have capacities like the Americans, because the US is right next to Haiti as opposed to us who are miles away, is that then maybe they would have taken local Haiti people and taken them into training, get these thousands and thousands of Haiti patriots that are willing to rescue their countries, and maybe go get them to the US, give them the kind of training and technology they need. I mean, the US is a $21 trillion economy. We are hardly $110 billion. We are not even $1 trillion. It has the capacity to ship in thousands of Haitis and give them the best security training they can get and equipment, so they're able then to go back to their country and take care of it. This is unfortunate. It's an agenda of glory. The president wants to seek that, and I think it's unfortunate that it's going to be at the expense of some innocent lives of our people.
All right.
Well, I think just to add on, on to what he said, the problem with us Kenyans is looking down on Kenyans. When you talk about thuggery, which is dealt with by the police, and also terrorism and such, even the countries we consider to be, having the highest and the best of technology and the best of training of the police officers are still overwhelmed by, thuggery. The other day you saw shooting by small kids in the US. So if they're the ones you're looking up to, they're even unable to tame the children, with guns because of their laws. You get the point? When you go to London, there are hotspots. There are areas where the London police is not able to deal with in other major cities. So we cannot really, per se, condemn Nairobi and the police force and assume that we are so incapable. Thuggery is rising, and I know this is going with the times. And so I think what we need is exposure at the same time, because when we're having our police officers dealing with the simple, mobile snatchers, mobile phone snatchers and whatever, they behave badly. But when they go and deal with serious issues, when they come back, of course they will tell the ones who are here, who've not traveled, to understand that there is more to their service, more to their capabilities, beyond what they have been doing and offering previously. So I think it's a good thing, it's a plus. Let them get exposed and see what would be the result henceforth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll be keeping tabs with that, because it's not just about whether or not Kenya needs to send out this contingent, but it's also a question of what does the Constitution say, even as the Law Society of Kenya has said that is an unlawful deployment, because it's not stipulated anywhere in the Constitution where police officers are required to go beyond Kenya's borders on peacekeeping missions. So we'll be keeping tabs with that, but it sounds a bit too late. The mission is on a go-ahead, so what can they do about that? So we'll be keeping tabs with that. But gentlemen, let's focus on something that happened on Friday that has been the talk of town for the basic weekend, and that is on the Limuru 3 meeting. And it's a meeting where leaders from the Mount Kenya region who have been termed as political rejects. If you look at people that attended the meeting, Martha Karua, the NARC Kenya party leader who was vying for or was the running mate to Azimio leader Raila Odinga in 2022, did not get her seat. Take a look at Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of Jubilee Party, who has been in wrangles with other Mount Kenya leaders, and there are many more faces. If you keenly take a look at their political journey, or at least what happened in 2022, very few, including Gathoni wa Mushomba, are current sitting members of parliament. Now, in a quick fight back on Sunday, some of the leaders who are allied to the DP said the meeting is inconsequential. However, it seems like Gachagua is fighting for his life in the Mount Kenya region. How is that, Songaira?
Politics, as it is, it's very dynamic. In 2003, when President Kibaki got elected, he got elected with almost 63%, the most popularly elected president in the history of Kenyan politics. No other president has been able to get such kind of votes, and not even President Uhuru Kenyatta, who narrowly made it past 50% 2 times, and this president as well made it almost with 0.4% because he got 50.04%. But the thing is, despite being elected popularly, President Kibaki at that particular time in 2003, 2 years later, the president lost a referendum. That was basically an indictment on his performance. And so, because politics changes over time and interest as well as they come, they change over time. The Mount Kenya region are the biggest investors in the government of President William Ruto. When you look at the volumes of the votes that they gave him, 7.1 million votes that President William Ruto got, and he got almost 3.4 million votes from just the Mount Kenya region alone. That is half of his vote, and therefore technically meaning it is his lifeline. And so the president has made every effort to ensure that he's able to lock that, and he did that from day one. When you just look at how even he appointed his cabinet, he went in for Moses Kuria in Kiambu, went in for Waume in Murang'a, and we had the lady Rebecca Miano from Nyandarua, and he spread the bread across the region just to ensure that his cabinet actually reflected the level of contribution that the region made in his county. And so those are almost 6 appointees in cabinet, and then you have the Attorney General and Secretary to the Cabinet, Mercy Wanjau. He flooded the cabinet with the region because he knew the political capital that comes with such appointments. Of course, at the expense of the rest of the Kenyans, because Kenya is a diverse state, and it's a government that is funded by all our taxes. So many other people would have issues, including myself, in terms of that. The picture of that cabinet completely doesn't represent the face of Kenya. But because the president politically, and I said he's a politically shrewd person because he knows that half of his votes come from that particular area, and that region with almost 5 million votes, when you totally it up, because Raila Odinga got I think 800 something thousand from the region, and then there's a little bit of what you call a diaspora vote that still voted for him. So you could say he walked out with almost 1 million if you compound it across the country for the people from Mount Kenya who supported the SV coalition. And so William Ruto understands that there's a possibility that that could slip out, and that technically gives him a knockout, because without 4 million votes you lack a head start. You saw yesterday during that same Limuru 3, and some of the leaders were saying that how can we have 6 million votes and then the person that is leading us has only 2 million votes, that Mount Kenya must have a candidate. And it makes sense, because if you have 6 million votes and they only have 2 million votes, there would be a debate, because it's hardly a third of that vote. And so the Mount Kenya region realizes their contribution into this government and how much they put in to ensure that this president comes in. And as obviously days go by, at that particular time they were seeking to form government. But now they formed government and they realize that there's some missing links. And we have issues. I know it's very easy to brand them as Azimio, but when you look at the conversation around the country, on some of the issues that are actually national and not political, even the cost of living and all those things, and the high taxes, the issues that cut across the region. And I used to go to collect materials from a place in Gekomba, our furniture business, and I used to go there a lot of times, and there's a huge supporter of President William Ruto there. And back then they used to say of how the president was going to turn around the economy and things like that. So the other day I was just there randomly to go check the prices, because I rarely go there all the time. And I ran into my old friends, and when I went to one of my friends' hardware, my brother Mredi, is that I didn't find him. So I asked him where he is, because I just found his workers and he has a hardware and goods and stuff. Then he told me, you call him. So I called the guy, said, my brother, I'm at your shop and I wanted to check your materials. And then he tells me, we chagua tu, and then nipate mahali unajua, there's a place I usually get him. So he actually got the balls, I loaded, then I went to see him. I realized he was running away from the KRA, the KRA service revenue guys, because they're walking around, especially when they know that you have a tangible business. They have to come in, check your PIN and all these details. So he knew they had come for him, because clearly the kind of business he has there is a business worth a couple of millions when you just look at the inventory of the materials there. So I kept joking to him and telling him, why are you running from a government that you formed? And he said, this government has really finished us. You understand? And I was a passionate supporter of the government. So the region now realizes that it has some challenges, both political, social, and economic, and there are people who agree that there are issues that need to be addressed. And some of those issues were the ones that were being addressed there, only that they took a political angle. And I think as you do that, then it has leaders that represent, they have leaders that they believe should be representing them in government. And one of them, as you clearly put it, then is Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who then become the highest ranking of member of government from that particular region as a deputy president. And then they believe that he should be representing their interests, but then there's a lot that is at stake in terms of debates on his stature within government, and that has prompted them to desire to go back to what you're saying, Limuru 3, and be able to replan on the vision of the community. Yeah. And I think that's something good that they should work on.
Muito, the succession talks are here at the center already about 2027,
yeah.
And the battle of numbers. If we are 4 million, then we should be legitimately giving out a candidate for 2027. And the name of former President Uhuru Kenyatta kept on popping up quite a lot, and they said, that's our kingpin until he chooses somebody else. And yet you have a region that has got a deputy president, the second most powerful person in the country, that is one of your leaders. So why this succession talk now, and why does the name of the former President Uhuru Kenyatta keep on popping up more often than not?
I think first let me say that in Kenyan politics, much as we wouldn't like to hear this, when Mount Kenya coughs, the whole nation coughs. That's politically. Because a very small meeting like what we had at Limuru.
You're calling it small?
Yeah, small. It was small. It was small because filling up a stadium or such a place with 2,000, 3,000 people, that does not represent really the face of Mount Kenya. Yeah. And noting the kind of masses that went to elect His Excellency the Deputy President with the President William Ruto, you used to see what used to happen even during campaigns, the following, and it has never changed. And mark you, Jubilee split twice. So the Jubilee you're talking about could be around 7%. So it's not a big deal, but it depends on how loud you shout. There's some communities when it comes to screaming, they can scream louder than other communities. Screaming, in terms of screaming, I mean the vocals are very good. So in Kenyan politics, Mount Kenya politics is influential. And anytime you talk about politics in Kenya, you have to consider the politics of Mount Kenya because of their numbers, because of their influence, because of their participation. These are the kind of things that make Mount Kenya hard to ignore.
Yeah.
When you look at what we had with Limuru, the Honorable Martha Karua and Kioni went around saying that we have no specific agenda, or we don't have special guests. Yet you have specials. They had. We discovered the following morning they had special seats set aside for some people. So that means there was some kind of political machination, and that's against Gachagua and his team of 47%, plus the few that came with Kanini Kega and the team. What we're trying to say here is that His Excellency, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, is a disgruntled fellow, because I don't think he expected that 10 years would end like that. I mean, he had more plans that he thought he would accomplish within that span of time, but he didn't accomplish it. So I think the hangover of him still being at the helm of leadership is what really is bothering him, and that's why he is pouring lot of money and cash, to ensure that such a thing happens to discredit.
How will you back up those claims?
I can back them up because he wasn't there. He was an agenda. He was an agenda. Uhuru Kenyatta becoming the kingpin of Mount Kenya was not his choice. It was the choice of the Mount Kenya people. We're the ones who endorsed him. We are the ones who even convinced other Mount Kenya people. I was in the campaign trail in 2012 to convince them that regardless of what anybody else thinks of Uhuru Kenyatta's integrity, reputation, character, and everything, we are the ones who built it and made Uhuru Kenyatta what he became, 2012, the President of the Republic of Kenya. So Uhuru did not appoint himself. So why would he think that he can become the appointing person of the next person who is to lead the Mount Kenya people? Mount Kenya people have a choice for themselves. Secondly, the reason why Uhuru was left alone with the few, that is the 15% that he donated to Azimio.
20 plus.
Okay, let's make it 21 and a half. But still doesn't get to 47. Okay, it was 15%, of course, because it was only 800,000. Now, the 15% that Uhuru Kenyatta donated to Azimio and tried to force Raila Odinga to the Mount Kenya people, of which Raila Odinga was not their choice, was a big mistake. And that is what Uhuru had to pay for. And that bitterness has not left him. It hasn't left Martha Karua, who lost for the second time, having lost in 2017 and went around campaigning. There was a caucus that was formed, led by Martha Karua, Mary Wamboi, and many other people, Kioni, the ones who lost in 2017. They went around claiming that William Ruto denied them their comeback into the 2017, after the 2017 elections, because they lost at the nomination level, when Ruto steered the formation of the Jubilee Party. Now this Mount Kenya politics, and this cost some of them their seats. But how many votes did Ruto cast? None in Mount Kenya. It's Mount Kenya people who rejected them. And evidently, even Martha Karua, in her bid as the second in command under Raila Odinga, she could only garner, I think, was it 38 votes? Yeah. So what would you do to convince Kenyans that you can bring Kenyans together with 38 votes and 2 losses twice? She tried and she lost. So what I'm trying to say is, I know Hanak Kenya party is a dying party, and she would like to have the party gain some relevance. And the only place she can try to gain some relevance is Mount Kenya region, because it does not have the face of Kenya. So she might not have that influence in the coastal region, western region, or Nyanza, or any other place. So she can only start here. So the onslaught against Rigathi Gachagua and the bitterness that she pours like venom against Rigathi Gachagua and the team that we, the Mount Kenya people, elected is actually what is bothering them. Now, Limuru 3 could not expose the agenda until morning. And we had their MC, Kioni, what would you expect if Gachagua was seated there? And the insults they hurled at him and the government, including the president himself, who has no business with Mount Kenya, because what Mount Kenya unity, what business does His Excellency the President have? But you see, they were already planning on 2027. Now they want to convince others because they feel the exit of Raila Odinga from the Kenyan politics to AU politics will render them irrelevant. So what are they doing? They are trying to build a bargain power with the larger Mount Kenya community so that they can see whether they can come in, but come in fighting, not come in humbled. You get the point? So, like I said, and I say this as a prediction, not prophecy, it's a prediction. I said by November, by June this time, we would be discussing, actually I said by June, we'll start discussing unity. So they are pretending to be extending an olive branch, which had already been extended by the Deputy President himself and his team. Now, they're trying to run away with it, but we are seeing them from very far. But by May next year, Uhuru Kenyatta will make a declaration. And that I'm saying because we're still in Kenya.
He'll make 2025?
May 2025. Because 2026, Mount Kenya will have to be a formidable team so that they can have a bargain power so strong in the formation of the next government. Mount Kenya, on the KK side, Kenya Kwanza side, are not ready for 2027. We are ready for 2032. And if William Ruto, if the President William Ruto does not play smart, then he might find Mount Kenya on the other side of his opposition. And that means he might lose close to 5 million votes. Okay? Yeah. So what you're trying to say is that when he does the maths, what Uhuru Kenyatta did to anger him and for the Mount Kenya people to embrace him in 2018 was the entry of Raila Odinga into the Jubilee politics. Okay? Yeah. Under Uhuru Kenyatta. Then he took the responsibilities, some of the responsibilities, most of the responsibilities actually, of the office of the Deputy President and gave them to Matiang'i, you know? Then the Minister for Interior. The same thing he has done. He is working so hard to ensure that Raila Odinga is so close. And he has gone to Western to pull Musalia Mudavadi, who brought in, I think, paltry 5% of the votes, because the rest from the Western Kenya was actually brought in by Moses Wetangula, the Speaker. What I'm trying to say is, this is the kind of ploy that the side of His Excellency the President, which you feel that is not being played without his influence or understanding. He knows exactly what is going on. The things that are going on, the plans that are being hatched at the Rift Valley against Rigathi Gachagua is not something that we never expected. We knew it might happen. And we are ready to fight back. I mean, as Mount Kenya people, as Mount Kenya people. So we will fight it. They will fight back. Yeah. And Rigathi Gachagua is ready to fight back. He was just watching. He had taken a short sabbatical to watch and see what's going to transpire that week, because it was a very hot week. So definitely things are going to unfold.
Just before you come in, Kaira, perhaps just to update our viewers about what they're seeing on their screen. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi and the country's foreign minister and others have been found dead at the site of a helicopter crash on Monday after an hours-long search through foggy mountains. And that's the state media of Iran that has announced the President Ebrahim Raisi, aged 63, has passed on following a tragic helicopter crash that has also claimed the lives of the country's foreign minister, among other delegates. Now, the crash, of course, comes at a time when the Middle East remains unsettled between Israel and Hamas war, to which Iran, under the reign of Raisi, launched an unprecedented drone and missile attack on Israel just last month. So that is the news that is coming in from beyond our borders, and that is something that we'll be keeping tabs on. So Ngaida, let me bring you in here. What is it that the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is doing wrong? He, extended an olive branch to the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, said, you're still our son. As well to the mother, Mama Ngina Kenyatta, has been at the center of fighting for, enough resources or county allocations to the Mount Kenya region. He supports the one man, one vote, one Kenya shilling debate. What is it that he's doing wrong that warrants this sort of attack from other Mount Kenya leaders?
You know, first of all, Cynthia, I wanted to say that, you know, Kenya is a free and democratic state, and all Kenyans, all the 53, maybe 54 million Kenyans are free to assemble and consolidate and plan their things because it is within the Bill of Rights. And so the guys that planned the Limuru trip is not an exception. They're within their rights to be able to assemble and discuss, just like any other Kenyans and the issues that they have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Number two is that in the 2022 elections, after the 2020 election, we had a vote and the vote was very clear. There's almost 800,000 as you put it, and I'm telling you there's an extension of a diaspora vote which could easily say 1 million votes out of potentially 4 million votes that were casted from what you call the Mount Kenya region. And 1 million votes out of 4 million, Cynthia, you're almost closing into 25%. Those are people who never voted for this government. They knew this government, they knew UDA, but they didn't choose to vote for this election because they had reservations based on their own political rights as not to support that particular government. That reason might have not changed. And so Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua realized that even as much as they walked into this election victory with a big chunk of the Mount Kenya votes, but he now realizes that there's also a bunch of other people that were not part of that government that he needs to consolidate. But then he probably did not have the right tact as when he was coming in, because what I've understood even me now politically is that if you are, once you go into a political battle and then you come out victorious, is that you must then understand that there's a big chunk of people that didn't support you, and the first mission that you have to do as a leader is to be able to consolidate those who supported you and those who didn't support you.
Which is already done.
He's attempted to do that. It is what he's doing actually, the things you're mentioning, that you're going back to President Uhuru Kenyatta and his family and the politicians.
Yeah.
The politicians. He started off with those that were primarily the Jubilee MPs, and he was able to embrace them, which politically things are good to tact, because then it gives you a backbone with which you can be able to continue negotiating on a political table. And so he is not doing it. He hasn't done anything, or just that I think he's being late because he took off on a very sad note. On a very combative note, sorry, not sad, that was the name. I wanted to give an example of what happened in Senegal. You know, President Macky Sall just left immediately after inauguration, didn't go back home. He left to the stadium and went to the airport, because, you know, he had come in after the folks that we took over government had gone through a lot, until including 2 weeks just into election, being in jail. Yeah. So President Macky Sall knew outrightly he was not safe, so he had to leave before this president sets his foot to even write the first declaration as a president. And so but you know, Osman Sonko and President Faye haven't quite gone back to the first thing they did, and the like what that president did. He said he announced peace and said that they're not going to be vengeful, and they're focusing on forming a new government. They formed a new government and they're focused on economy and other issues. They've allowed President Macky Sall and the folks that were running his government maybe to align and create room to disappear. Yeah. So Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua understands the reality of that, because politics do change. Cynthia, today as we speak, IBC has 22.5 million registered voters in its political platform. Central Kenya, the original 5 counties, what you call native Kikuyu counties, have about 2.9, maybe 3 million registered voters. Then you have another, what you call a diaspora vote in Embu, the Upper Eastern, probably only 500,000 or so. So when you consolidate that, then they're talking of a maximum of 5 million votes at most, out of a portal of 22 million votes. It's hardly 30% of that particular vote. It's a small, tiny issue that the region has to work on, which doesn't really necessarily apply to the rest of us as a country, because even us from the regions that we come from, we have our plans. You know, in Western, as you say, there's over 600,000 people voted for President William Ruto. If you consolidate what he got in Bungoma, 250,000, but you must also know the president got votes in Trans Nzoia, he got votes in Kakamega, and even in Nairobi we had people from Western that were supporting UDA. And so when you put that together, you realize the president collected almost 600,000 votes. He also went ahead and collected almost 400,000 votes at the coast, including winning a governor in Kwale, which was a big win for him, because that's a hardcore. You know, Kwale, unlike Mombasa, is not as cosmopolitan, with the exception of that area of Ukunda and Diani, where Cynthia and the other people like to go. Then the rest of the county is largely a rural country, and they still, for them to go ahead and vote UDA, it shows that the UDA and the president had done some good work in terms of mobilization, and was able to get another 400,000 votes. Cynthia, that alone is 1 million votes. If you exclude 1 million votes from what the president got in a victory that he narrowly made it past 200,000, then clearly this guy would have never been president. When you look statistically on paper in terms of theory, theoretically on paper 22.5 million votes and you have just a maximum of 6 million votes, still you cannot be able to have a clear win in that, and at most you can do is about 7 to 8, maybe 10 counties. So it doesn't mean much to the country, but I believe for the region it's important for them to reorganize themselves, and Deputy Rigathi Gachagua understands the importance of being able to consolidate that group heading towards the 2027 elections, because the interests change. The 600,000 people that voted for President William Ruto, I've always told people that, and confirmed to people who usually allege that Ruto didn't get votes in Western and in Bungoma. In Bungoma, I saw people queuing and voting for this president. And those people queued and voted for this president because of how he had branded his campaign. I had uncles, an uncle of mine who is a land economist and has so much interest in land matters, always told me the only reason he's voting for UDA, he was saying, is because he believes Ruto is the only candidate that has the guts to question the Kenyattas and many other big-time landlords in the country about their land and where they got their land. And he queued and voted for this president. An uncle of mine, you understand? So the president understands that that vote is not a guaranteed vote. That is almost 1 million votes. These are people who didn't vote for him because he's their brother. The president is not their uncle. He's somebody they just agreed with their issues at that particular time, and that can change. And I think Deputy Rigathi Gachagua as well understands that from his region, and he is now trying his best to be able. He has mellowed down in terms of his attacks. He's been very receptive to the opposition. I see nowadays he never misses a chance to engage Raila Odinga. He's no longer attacking him as he does, and the opposition as well, because he understands then he needs these people going towards the 2022 election. But he has to contend with the right of democracy, because all these Kenyans, Martha Karua, Kioni, and there are million plus people that voted for Azimio, and potentially a few others, people like my friend that I just give an example in Gikomba and many others who voted for this president for, because we go to ballot for different reasons. I could just go there, go to the ballot to vote for you simply because I like you. 2, or I like the things you do. 3, we share a common enemy. Not that I agree with you, but if everything is our common enemy, then I support you. You understand? Yeah. But once that battle is over, I can change my mind. You understand? So this president, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is in a tough corner. I've said it many times. I think he's making efforts to be able to consolidate that, and I think it's very important for him. They plead that the people in Mulimuru actually what they said, because I realized they were mixed up. It's not just you, as you. There were a bunch of other people who actually were supporting UDA, some elected guys that were not entirely elected on Azimio or Jubilee were part of that convention. And one of the pleas they say, they were asking Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, please come back home. You understand? They were not saying that that we are against the government, and so they're saying please come back home so that all of us are able to consolidate our interest and negotiate better going forward. And I think it's
brief. You answer it, Mureithi, and also put across the economic part of it as well. It's not just about the political issues that were talked about at the Limuru 3, also economic issues on the finance bill, the punitive taxation measures. So you can answer on that as well, because those are legitimate, issues, observations and issues that they have raised that have directly affect not just the Mount Kenya region, but also people from across other regions. So you can answer on the economic issue as well as add on to what you wanted to do.
Well, what I wanted to clarify before I go into that is that 3.7 people from the rural Mount Kenya voted for William Samoei Ruto. There is this 1 million from diaspora. You cannot claim that it went to Azimio. As a matter of fact, it went to UDA. Now, and if it did, not wholly 100%, but the larger percentage went to UDA. Secondly, 2018, for William Ruto to make sense in Western Kenya, for them to see this is a guy who can take over the mantle from Uhuru Kenyatta come 2022 elections, is the confidence that was hatched and nurtured within the Mount Kenya region until the rest of the nation complained that William Ruto is so into Mount Kenya, and is as though he was charmed to kind of, be in Mount Kenya every time, every now and then, until 2022. So we created that influence, and today I'm talking about Mount Kenya, since I'm from that region, and I know what happened then. So what I'm trying to say is that what he has, when you talk about not less than 4.5 million votes, and then you add on to what should be coming home to roost, the 800,000 or not 800,000 really, but let's say 500,000. If they come back, that's over 5 million votes, which you cannot ignore if they're put in one basket. But if it's split, divided into two, then that would not make much impact. But if it's in one basket for one candidate, then it means the Mount Kenya politics are strong. Rigathi Gachagua is a fighter, and you can tell that from the days of humiliation since 2018, he has stood his ground regardless of the humiliation that he had suffered individually, while William Ruto was suffering on the other side. But he stood his ground until they got what they wanted. Okay? Now, what is happening right now? He came in and he fought against Raila Odinga, coming in as a coalition, or like a coalition partner. But this is what he did with the former Jubilee government, because you remember the former president was referring to Raila Odinga as his advisor and a friend. You know, this is what Rigathi Gachagua was fighting. No, now that he overcame that one and he's able to lock him out in Ethiopia and out of the Kenyan politics, definitely he has no reason to keep punching. He has to put his guards down. Now the local politics at the Limuru 3, there were economic challenges that they wanted to mention, devoid of the facts on ground that the coffee farmers today are taken care of. There's been 4 billion shillings that has been pumped that the coffee farmer can reach to and actually improve on their production. And that has been done by the Ruto government. The revival of the KCC, Kenya Cooperative Creameries, means that the dairy farming is going to go high. You know, talking of fertilizer, which was largely condemned by the opposition, is only around 2% that had a problem. 98% was good fertilizer. So when we go by these facts, then we know that definitely Rigathi Gachagua is working. When we see what transpired at Limuru, it means that the Limuru guys were out of touch with reality, simply because they are planning for the 2027 Oster of William Ruto, but we'll stand with William Ruto as KK. In support.
Just a quick clarification.
I didn't interrupt you. Let me finish up. When you come now to the finance bill that is coming up, there were complaints that it's actually a proposal. It's a proposed budget. So it's not really the one, it has to be debated in Parliament. It has to be brought out for public participation, for discussion by the masses. And already the scrapping of tax on bread, that one seems like it will not see the light of the day when it even gets to Parliament. So what I'm trying to say is that there are also some amendments that actually will be implemented at Parliament or discussed at Parliament level for the public finance management. And all these amendments, maybe some of them are going to reduce the time frame from 3 months maybe to 1 month, so that it means that they can be able to implement some of these things within a month or two, so that when they formulate the policy that is going to affect the expenditure, the expenditure of the 2024-2025 budget, then I think they will run with new policies. And so amendments will have to take place. And so whatever has been brought forth in terms of, hikes in, bread especially, and, food items, this is something that is to be debated upon. And I do believe that the government is sensitive. But one thing I know for sure is that the development agenda that His Excellency the President has is actually going to, take up much of the resources that will be tapped by the KRA. Right. So definitely we will get into taxation, and actually it's going to bite into the Kenyan wallet, the Kenyan taxpayers' wallet.
Yeah, Ngaira, we're out of time, but in a few minutes, clarify.
I just wanted to say this to my brother and probably any other person that's listening too. The 800,000, almost 1 million people that voted for the opposition were not stones. They were human beings. They had an opinion then, they still have an opinion today. The Kenyans who are in central Kenya who are raising issues in as far as social and economic issues are concerned, and they're saying that we support this government, but now we disagree on certain things that have been happening in the last maybe 2 years, are not stones again. They're human beings, they have an opinion, and most of them are registered voters. The political dynamics change over time, though the issues that were being run against, the issues that are being run on in 2022 election cycle might not be the same issues that are going to be run on in the next election. And the other factors also that come into play. Raila Odinga had never gotten even 200,000 votes in central region. For him to be able to even get 1 million votes, that is almost 5 times what he ever got. It means there are people who changed their minds, and there are people who supported that cause. Raila Odinga might not be on the ballot in the next election, which is also a factor in the dynamics of the elections that are happening that day. You might find somebody, maybe even the biggest opponent of William Ruto and the government in the Mount Kenya region might be turnout. There's a guy called turnout. Turnout is a guy that just means not even the other competitors. Cynthia, I can have 4 supporters and you have 6, but if you're too sleep, I can win that election. Yeah. Not because I have the most numbers, but because your people just were not as motivated to show up. That is also a factor. But I've told you that largely the reason why the opposition has been losing over the years, and I've said this just very quickly because of time, has been that I've told you, even if you combined, if we all Kenyans, all the 22.5 million registered voters were to turn up at Nyayo Stadium for the Moi's 1988 head count and be able to vote, I can tell you that there is no way that 6 million voters can win an election. They can't. But you see, it's because the other regions haven't been quite as strategic, but you never know because elections and interests change, and the other regions might turn up. The Western region had 3.5 million votes in the last election. That's almost 2.2 million votes in the native counties over there. And then there's the diaspora vote, Nairobi, almost 600,000 people from Western there. That's 3.5 million votes. Every single year, we have 300,000 IDs being registered in our region. Kakamega County, almost I saw the other day, is about 50 to 50,000 requests to apply for new IDs. That means you have 300,000 people adding into the becoming adults every year. So it means in 5 years, there's another 1.5 million people that are actually becoming voters. In Kakamega, we have 800,000 votes. Yet today, I saw Kenya National Bureau of Statistics give us the details for this year. They're saying our population, they were doing this during the fertilizer feeding program. They said the population in Kakamega is 2.6 million people today. And they're saying 60% of that are adults. That means Kakamega has 1.3 million adults who are natives there, just based on the numbers that government gave us for the fertilizer program. And if you only have 800,000 registered voters, it means there's 500,000 people who are actually valid registered voters, but they're just hanging around.
Let's call them inactive.
Inactive, you understand? So, and you never know, because that means with 1.3 million votes, it means the Kakamega County alone can give a leader 1 million votes, which gives a head start. So things can change, because then the Luhya nation will have probably 5 million registered voters, which means it's going head to head with the Mount Kenya region. But you see, it depends on how the politics of the day would be going forward that particular year. Rigathi Gachagua is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. He has, and I've always said I'm very proud of him, because he's a first-time member of Parliament. For him to be able to achieve that, it shows the political shrewdness that he had, because Martha Karua, Rigathi Gachagua is not even 30% of the political capital that Martha Karua had built over 30 years. He's been MP for almost 20 years and the Minister of State. You understand? For him to be able to achieve that, it shows that he's not a weak leader. He's somebody that knows how to plan, he knows how to fund, and he knows how to campaign in such positions. So I wish him well as he tries to consolidate the Mount Kenya region. But for him to be successful in 2027, Rigathi Gachagua must oppose this government. He'll work with a big chunk of the Mount Kenya region. Okay,
gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in this morning. We are slightly out of time, and so thank you for your company. Mwito Mureithi, who's a political commentator, as well as George Ngaira, who's a political analyst, on shedding, their thoughts over the Haiti deployment, as well as the U.S., state visit that President William Ruto has started, a 5-day state visit, and the Limuru 3 meeting as well. What's hot and what's not? That particular meeting, which has been termed inconsequential by some of the allies of the deputy president. So we'll be seeing whether that meeting bears fruits or not, as well as other developments just around that, and perhaps another meeting that they could, slate in the coming weeks in time. So thank you for your company, gentlemen. We wrap it up at that point. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourself a wonderful morning ahead. Good morning.